Welcome to another video in our series of paperweight tapes. Today we're going to show you just how a treble magnum is made. This rose former, coated with wax, plays a vital part in the operation. The triple magnum is going to be made by our master craftsman Franco. And these are some of the colours he's going to use in creating this intricate design. He'll be helped by Stuart, who is training in all aspects of glass making. This is the third gather of glass Franco's taken, and we need an amount such as this before we can even start to make any design within the glass. Franco's snipping out little faults and is rewarming the glass in the kiln to remove all the snip marks. He's using a carbon pallet to even up the glass on the blowing iron and to create what is virtually a cylinder form with a flat base. Franco's glory hole is about 7 times larger than a glory hole used for normal paperweight production. It's got to be big enough to take the finished magnum. He's picked up some blue powdered glass on the base of the piece, and he's backing it up with some white powdered glass. Back to the glory hole again, and a further gather of white glass. The glass is in powder form, and under the intense heat of the glory hole turns into a liquid glass. You can see the pale blue appearing now. There is the rose former made of stainless steel, and Franco is going to insert the glass. There he goes, press it down, and we should have an imprint of a rose within the glass in the exact center. The former has pushed the color on the base of the piece right up inside it and has made a rose shape. We're now cutting in and removing the excess color from the piece, but at the same time the petal shapes are all being drawn to the center spot on the base of that piece of glass. A quick block with a wooden tool to make the piece perfectly round, and there is the beginning of our design. A multi-petaled rose form. You can see the center spot quite clearly there. It's darker than the rest. And now that it's cooled down even further, the blue color appears. Always remember, colors in glass, when the glass is red hot, all look orange. Only when the glass cools does the true color become apparent. Franco and Stuart have gone to take a further gather of glass, and here they're back in double quick time. The glass is extremely warm, about 1000 degrees centigrade, and this heat travels up the iron, so Franco quite sensibly cools it down. picking up more colour again, a floating rose above a green base. Another dip of green for good measure. The glass is almost sticking to the tin tray. Back to the glory hole. And a further pickup of white behind the green. These layers are very thin, roughly 1/1000th of an inch of colour. It's been estimated that when you make a paperweight, you spend half the time rewarming at the glory hole. This will become obvious during this tape. Now high technology at its best. A fish knife, pressed in through the green and the white, makes a beautiful natural leaf shape, closely followed by a two-prong fork, which makes a double-prong shape like two reeds in between the shapes created by the fish knife, into the water and then in through the glass and through the colour. Evening up the base again. And we're going to do the same as before. We're going to get the base really very hot, and we're going to cut in and bring the leaf shapes this time to a central point, so that every piece of the design will appear to grow from one exact spot. Cutting in towards the centre, removing all the excess colour, a snip and it's away. Blocking around again. So we've now got a rose surrounded by a very intricate pattern of green leaves. These are some of Franco's tools. They're very simple. They haven't really changed in 300 years. There's a close-up of the rose. Still looks orange, but we know it's blue. Stuart cooling down the iron, ready for yet another gather. There it is, and by now the weight of glass involved here must be approaching 4 kilos. You can see the rose form inside. Another pickup. Bright green this time, under the floating rose. This time, instead of powdered glass, the glass is in chip form. It gives a more spatter effect. Into a backup of white again. That looks okay. Another quick reheat to melt the white in. The entrance to that glory hole is going to have to be made bigger very soon. The paperweight's almost touching the sides. Another one pickup of white. And once again, cool down the iron as the heat, as you can tell by the steam, is really travelling quite a way up now. Ease it past the cover in front of the glory hole. And once again, the fish knife comes into its own. Dipping it in water in between each insertion so that it won't stick inside the white hot glass. 8 leaves are going to surround the rose. And once again, they'll be cut away to a central point. See the blowing iron going inside the glass. Look at the end next to the chair. Look at the hands. Perfect coordination. Turning the paperweight at all times. Otherwise it droops and goes off center, and the whole mass of glass becomes unmanageable. Rounding off the base. After one more reheat, he cuts it in, once again drawing all the shapes together so that the whole design comes from one central point. Pull out some more excess, snip it off. A rounding with the wooden block. Measure with the calipers, just about perfect. It's important between each operation to let the piece cool, and it's down to the Franco's experience just how cool he lets the piece become before doing the next operation. What he's going to do now is take a further gather of glass and then coat the base with green and white in a different shade. He's still letting it cool, checking. The colour's coming stronger now, the green of the leaves is becoming apparent. And still he lets it cool. Now there is a gather. We've now got about 5 kilos of glass on the end of that iron, and that takes a bit of handling. So while it's still hot, because the molten glass covers the whole area, Franco cuts in at the back while Stuart rotates the iron. And he uses a piece of newspaper folded up into a pad, soaked in water, to give it a quick shape. We'll see more of the paper pad technique later on. You can clearly see the petals or the leaves now fanning outwards from that central point. On the floor, pick up the green chips. We're going to leave this area flat this time, and this will look like a piece of meadow grass underneath the rose. No fish knives, no two-pronged forks this time, just a flat piece of meadow grass. further reheat, and we'll back the green up with a white background. There we go. 2 light dips, even then the tray sticks with the heat. You can now see the front of the glory hole has been widened, and there's now ample clearance to let the triple magnum go in and out. Now Franco's going to round off the piece. That block is just about big enough that you can only catch the edge of the glass, so he'll shape it with the paper. Meanwhile, Stuart has been gathering at least 3 times a quantity of transparent cobalt glass, which is going to drop onto the base of this piece to make the background. He passes it to Franco, he takes the paperweight, and Franco blocks the base colour into a nice round shape suitable for dropping on. The act of blocking cools down the glass, so Stuart is going to have to reheat this one more time to get it as soft as possible for dropping on. Franco gets ready to upend the piece, and Stuart has got the blue glass as warm as possible, and he's got to keep that on the end of the iron, plop it exactly in the center, and Franco cuts it off. There's enough blue glass there to make 4 normal size paperweights. Now all we've got to do is to pat this together and try and spread the blue very evenly all over the base of the weight and maybe a quarter way up the sides. There's it spreading out nicely now. You take it over, says Franco. So Stuart rewarms the base of the piece, never looking directly at the furnace, but really going by experience and training to know when the glass, at the far end especially, is hot enough to rework and get rid of that seam that you can see where the blue joins the paperweight. Franco, refreshed, takes over again, gets the paper pad and starts to smooth that white hot blue glass into the rest of the piece. Now there comes a time when that newspaper burns through, and it might be advisable to add another pad. The shirt sleeve is also coming down now to stop that heat travelling. Yes, time for another pad, I think. The crossword's always a good page. There we go. An instant tool. Meanwhile, Stuart is moved on to the next operation, which is preparing a punty. This is the method of removing the paperweight from Franco's blowing iron and hopefully finishing it on Stuart's blowing iron. And as Stuart knows he's going to be holding this iron for a long time, he makes very sure that it's reasonably cool. Cheers, says Franco. Things are going reasonably well. Nothing like a cool, refreshing drink of water. Still quite hot. Touching the cut-in mark with water. This is where, in theory, the paperweight should separate from the rest of the glass. There goes the punty. Smack in the centre. And now Franco will use all his years of experience to pick the exact moment when he should apply more water to the cut-in mark, tap the iron, and the paperweight will become separated from his iron and remain stuck to Stuart's iron. But it's not that time yet. Both glassmakers working exactly in unison. Time now. On goes the water. Some more for good luck. And then a tap on the blowing iron. Half of it's come off, but half of it's remained on. Some more water's called for. There we go. And there it separates. But there's some rather huge pieces there sticking out from the end, and Franco can crack them off. Stuart lowers the piece to the ground, makes sure that iron's in, and manfully into the glory hole for a reheat. Franco's now centering exactly the weight on the iron. And as this is going to be a very long reheat to get the front of the paperweight as hot as humanly possible, Stuart will start it off, then Franco will take over, and then he'll use his Priscillas and cut-in to remove all these rough marks you can see quite clearly here at the front of the weight. In fact, to remove any evidence that it was ever attached to Franco's iron. Must be soon now. You can't let it get too warm or the whole piece will become unmanageable. There we go, white hot at the front. A little touch with the palette to make it perfectly circular. Then in with the Priscillas, and off comes all the join marks that were left from the iron. Franco's just spotted a flaw. It must be near the surface or he wouldn't try to get it out. Notice how he's turning the iron around all the time or that paperweight's going to droop. Now he's got it with the pincers, and the theory is that if he pulls this piece of glass up and up and up, he will drag the flaw out with the glass. I think it's a small bubble he's seen there, and he's hoping to get it out. He thinks he's got it this time. Yes, he thinks so, but just to be sure he calls in Stuart for a second opinion. Yeah, and all are agreed the offending bubble has now been removed. Now to get the paperweight almost spherical again. He's also decided there's too much glass in the front of the paperweight. In other words, it's going to have too high a dome, so he's removing some excess glass from the front. Stuart takes another turn at reheating. He'll try to keep the back warm. And now Franco's taken over again. Notice how the hands control everything. Even one-handed. He's dealing with 5 kilos of glass, remember. Now he will flat down the bump at the front of the weight, which he's done now quite successfully. Aided and abetted by Stuart counterbalancing the weight at the far end. And now goes back to the paper pad and really applies some pressure here, and the paper burns smoothly, hence the smoke, but it doesn't mark the surface of the glass, which is the main thing. The paperweight now has its traditional dome shape. Measuring with the calipers. He looks to be cooling quite rapidly at the back. He'll need to watch that. The paperweight is very warm at the front, but is quite cool at the back and might crack and fall off. So he puts the whole thing further inside the glory hole this time to warm up the back as well as the front. That little area of glass is all that's keeping 5.5 kilos of triple magnum attached to the blowing iron. Now Stuart has put down 2 layers of fiberglass cloth, and eventually that is where the paperweight, if it's knocked off successfully, will sit. Meanwhile, another copy of the Sunday Times goes up in smoke. In fact, it's going up in so much smoke that Franco may well ask Stuart to get the air hose and blow the smoke away from him so that he can actually see what he's doing. There we go, there's the air hose now blowing the smoke away from the maker and directly into the eyes of the cameraman, but not to worry. An almost silky finish has now been put onto the surface of the paperweight. And this gleaming finish can be actually heightened by giving it very, very careful reheats in the glory hole to achieve what we call a furnace polish. The skin of the glass melts to a glassy, shiny texture. Still not happy, but notice how gently he's touching the skin now. Just a gentle touch here and there to get rid of some little line that he can see that we can't. And once again that punty mark is looking suspect. Ah, he's fixed it now. What he's done is put a trail of clear glass over the existing punty, and the heat will travel through the whole thing and keep the paperweight securely on the iron. Time for a well-earned rest and a final examination of the weight to see if anything at all can be done to improve it. It looks like Franco's happy, and he now passes the responsibility to Stuart to rotate the weight and to watch it cooling slowly down. Now we've got to get it off. What do we use? Like everything else in glassmaking, the simplest possible tool which does the job to perfection. Stuart is going to have to insert this underneath the weight, and Franco, who has got it up, will now tap it gently, and all things going well, it comes off as easy as that. Then onto the fiberglass. Starts to cool. There's the blue base beginning to show through now. The rose, however, still looks red. Remember, it's blue. There goes the hand test. It's been sitting there about 5 minutes now. And Franco personally puts the triple magnum in the kiln where it will cool down for 36 hours.